King Philip II was one of the most powerful rulers of his time, commanding an empire that stretched from the Americas to the Philippines. As a strict defender of Catholic orthodoxy during the Counter-Reformation, he became both respected and feared, launching the Spanish Armada against England and waging war across Europe against Protestant heretics. But Philip's final battle wasn't fought on distant battlefields. It took place in his own bedroom. For 52 agonizing days, the man who had once ruled the world was left helpless by disease, slowly broken down, and finally consumed by parasites. But let's start at the beginning. Philip was born in May 1527 with the heavy weight of expectation on his shoulders. He was the son of Emperor Charles V and Isabella of Portugal, born not to live a normal life, but to rule. At just 16, he was made regent of Spain. He didn't rule with fire, but with silence, calm, calculated, and relentless. Even then, he seemed older than his years. The boy was already becoming the king history would come to fear. Philip believed he was chosen by God to protect the Catholic faith. Under his rule, the Spanish Inquisition grew stronger. Heretics were tortured and executed. Jews, Muslims, and Protestants were driven out or burned at the stake during grim public ceremonies called autos da fe. He even launched a war against England to defend Catholicism. But now, after 42 years of ruling Spain with an iron fist, the man with the endless empire was nearing his end. The first signs came in 1598. At 71 years old, Philip had long suffered from chronic illness. Gout had tortured him since his 30s, twisting his fingers and toes. Then came arthritis, which left him nearly unable to move. In June 1598, things got worse. He developed high fevers and painful abscesses swollen, infected sores on his arms and legs. Doctors had no real treatments. They used warm cloths and drained his blood, but nothing worked. Within weeks, the king could move only his head and one arm. The once glorious royal court fell apart as servants struggled to meet even his most basic needs. The man once greeted with bows now lay soiled in his own waste. As the summer heat grew stronger, so did his suffering. Abscesses spread across his chest, groin, and legs. The smell filled the palace. Courtiers held perfumed cloths to their faces. Philip, still fully conscious, ordered the windows shut not for comfort, but to trap the stench inside. He was now a prisoner of his own rotting body. But when it seemed that things couldn't get worse, the lice came. They were first seen in early August. Maybe they came in with the servants, or maybe they were born from the filthy bedding. Either way, Philip's body was the perfect host, warm, still, and covered in open wounds. The lice swarmed over him, feeding on his blood and the infected tissue. Servants tried to clean him, but the lice always came back. Flies laid eggs not just in the sores, but in his mouth, nose, and ears. Too weak to move, Philip could only lie still as insects crawled across his face. Medical historians now believe he had myiasis, a condition where maggots grow in living flesh. And all the while, his gout made every touch unbearable. Each time they tried to clean him or move him, his screams echoed through the palace. This man, who once calmly watched heretics burn, now cried out for mercy, but he stayed fully aware. He knew what was happening, his transformation from king to corpse, but he still held on to his faith. Mass was held daily in his chambers. He asked for prayers and for spiritual comfort, even as his body became food for worms. His mind endured what his body could not. Even in these final days, Philip called for his son, the future Philip III, to receive his blessing and final advice. But the prince couldn't bear the smell or the sight. He had to leave the room again and again. Still, the old king, once known as the prudent one, gave his son a final, bitter warning.
I have been treated like an old dog. Remember this when you wear the crown.
On the morning of September 13th, 1598, Philip II asked for the same crucifix that his father had held on his deathbed. He received his last rites while flies buzzed around the holy oils. At 5 a.m., the ruler of the greatest empire on earth took his final breath. But even in death, the horror continued. His body had already started to rot. When they tried to move him, it began to fall apart. Embalmers worked quickly, covering the smell with spices and perfumes. The funeral was rushed. His sealed coffin was placed in the royal crypt of El Escorial, his monument, his prison, and now his grave. The king who ruled continents could not command his own flesh. The man who sent heretics to the fire became a home for insects, as the historian William Prescott once wrote.
No amount of power or wealth could buy escape from the laws all mortals must obey. Now tell me, what do you think about King Philip? Write it in the comments.